Hey, thank you. Subscribers, this is a new thing here. I've been following Trey, right, Trey?
Yes, sir.
So I've been following Trey on TikTok for a long time, and I really don't spend too much time there. But I saw his videos, and then out of the blue, some of you guys sent me a video on TikTok where he was watching, he's critiquing one of my videos.
He said driving Uber is the hardest job in the world.
But this Uber driving might be the hardest thing I've ever done. The hard thing, and it was really good. Actually, I felt like he did a really good analysis, and so we just connected through TikTok, and I thought I'd bring him on, and I'd like to hear his feedback. But Trey, how do you go on your channels, Trey?
Yeah, so my channel's name, everybody watching the live, thank y'all for watching. My channel's name is T Jack. Like I said, but real name is Trey Jackson. So you doing well. Levi calling me Trey is fine. Yeah, so.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. Well, why don't you just introduce yourself real quickly, and then we'll jump into the heart of the thing. So just real quickly, what it is I want to hear from Trey, his feedback about me, and I've got some great questions for him. And at the end of the video, what I really want to know
Yes, sir.
is about Uber Black, because we don't have that up here. And so I want to hear, he's got some business ideas that everybody needs to hear because he's really savvy. So Trey, why don't you just introduce yourself, go about what you're doing, and then we'll jump into the heart of the video.
Absolutely. And once again, like I said, my name is Trey Jackson. I'm currently based in Texas. I'm a Uber Black fleet owner here in Houston. So I own a couple vehicles. I got a couple drivers. I started off as an Uber Black driver myself. And I only been in this industry for less than 1 year, and I already scaled to a fleet where I'm no longer behind the wheel. So, like I said, I'm based in Houston, Texas, specifically. Been in the rideshare business for 1 year, and I ran across Levi video on YouTube, and I'm like, because here's the thing, and like I said, I'm not a basher. When I watched your video, I was like, my view was like he's complaining in a way. And that, on the Uber Black side, I don't like drivers that potentially like complain, because I'm like, the whole goal behind Uber or these rideshare platforms is to use them as a lead system. Because if you on the black car side, you building a private clientele. That's where you're really going to make a lot of money. So
Right.
I watched the video. I'm like, oh man, let me correct this. Let me tell people what Uber and Lyft really for. So that was kind of like my feedback on it. And, you reaching out, I'm like, man, I would love to, talk about this on camera, because I did not know y'all didn't have Uber Black up there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I keep forgetting that Uber Black is not in every state. I keep forgetting that. So, like I said, we here to talk about it, and, let's do it. This is real and authentic, y'all, by the way. Me and Levi, I never talked to Levi before. This is the first time. So,
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you everybody a background. I'll put a link to the video somewhere up here.
Okay.
But there's a video where I basically trying to be as authentic as possible, just talking about what I feel makes Uber really hard. In fact, I'll be honest with everybody. I think Uber is the hardest job that I've ever done. And I kind of, again, because I speak riffing, I don't really edit a lot of those podcasts when I record them. The idea, I jumped into this scenario where, you're sitting there at the airport parking lot, and then people try to squeeze into an UberX when they know they should have ordered an Uber XL. And Trey's feedback, I was like, that's hard. And I was complaining, I was talking about how hard that was. And I sounded, and watching myself, I was sounding, pretty like lame, pretty wussy. I was like, oh, come on, And what I was trying to share, though, was my internal, what I was thinking, not how I present myself to, obviously, the passengers. And what I wanted to do was express, just kind of describe it a little bit better. The reason why I think Uber is hard, the hardest job I've ever done. And I'm 51,
Yes,
so
sir.
I've been around. I've done a lot of hard jobs, right? Actually, I used to live in Texas, and I used to cut grass for $3 an hour in San Antonio in the middle of the summer. That was hard.
Wow.
That was hard.
Wow.
That was really hard, right? But the reason why, for me, I feel it's hard is that Yeah, it's not really that hard physically compared to cutting grass. It's not as hard when I deployed out for the invasion to Iraq, 'cause I was in the military and stuff like that, or even like managing multi-million dollar companies like I've done before, and we sold those and stuff like that. So those are all hard. To me, I feel alone in the Uber world, right? And I don't get paid very well. So the level of difficulty. Oh, hold on, sorry about that. The level of difficulty for jobs, like when I was making a lot of money owning my own company, it was harder, but you get compensated for that difficulty. You have a team of people to help you out. When you're dealing with Uber problems, Uber doesn't answer the phone, right? They're going to try to find a way to screw you over. The passengers, and there's not like a team of people to help you out, and you're fighting for a couple of bucks, because most of us, we do the UberX world. And that was kind of a little bit where I was going with it. I probably didn't do a very good job. I don't know. You watched the video. You did a pretty good job at giving me some feedback there, or at least giving other people some feedback. What do you think, Trey?
Yeah, so I actually made a full reaction video to it. Levi, I don't know if you checked it
I'll
out,
put
but
a, yeah, I'll put,
I put it on
yeah.
YouTube. But my feedback when I watched that video, I was like, very interesting takes on his end. And I was like, he looking at the business wrong. Now, I want to
Yeah.
make myself very clear starting out. I do agree with you 1000%. Uber is very lonely. But at the end of the day, I'm like, Uber is not your job. This is not job stuff. You're just basically a subcontractor. Uber is the contractor that contracts out work to us, and we have the choice whether we want to accept it or not. Going back to your
Yeah.
airport thing that you talked about, I was like, you said, oh, all these people try to cram in my car and they didn't book that type of ride. I'm like, well, you as a driver, you have an option to tell them no, like, hey man, go book a Uber, Comfort or Uber XL. You ordered a X because, like you said, Uber X not really worth it. They're not paying you a lot anyway. So why would
Right.
you want to deal with more people for less money? The same amount of money Uber X drivers get. So I'm
Right.
like, you should have told them, hey, no, go get a Comfort in XL. And then I realized like everybody don't have that type of side of them as humans. Like I'm able to be like, hey man, no, you didn't book that type of ride. Go book it. Cancel the ride or I'm gonna cancel it. So from the airport standpoint, I'm like, okay, yes, I understand. But going back to it in whole, I know UberX, Uber Comfort is kind of a different world compared to Black. You dealing with
Yeah.
lower tax bracket people. I'm gonna just call a spade, lower tax bracket
Yeah.
people, and it's not people that are they all like cool people, like kind of compared to the Black passengers. Now, I'm not saying every Black passenger, Uber Black passenger, is chill, cool, because you do get some rude ones, people that do try to disrespect you. But I would argue it's not as much commonly compared to like X and Comfort.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to dealing with these types of people and you've been a driver, sometimes you do feel alone in a way because it's like, dang, I'm dealing with these rude people, I'm not getting enough money already, and I ain't got nobody to talk to about it. Which is why you, Levi, I commend you because you built a platform off of talking about it, which some people scared to do. They don't want to cut on the camera, they don't want to talk about it. And if you're watching this video, you're a driver, I recommend like build a community. If you lonely right now as a driver, you don't know what to do, you want people to talk about, build a community or join a community. Come join Levi community, right? But the challenge is trying to get over that hump. And my take is the best way to get over it is to unite. And like I said, you can do that by joining a group. Now, I want to go back to what you said as far as, the business in a whole. The Uber business, I look at it as a gold mine only if you come in to treat it like a business. I always tell people, I say, hey, before you get into this business, you need to identify what are you getting into it for? Are you coming to make extra cash or are you coming to treat it like a business? And you don't have to be an Uber Black driver to treat it like a business. The only reason I tell people that is because, like you mentioned, Uber Black is not in every state.
That's right.
Some people be like, Trey, Uber Black not in my state. How could I start offering private rides? Well, you can still get yourself a nice SUV. It don't have to be nothing crazy fancy, but you can still present yourself in a way as a private driver and still charge
Right.
people, 40, 50 an hour. Now, you may not be able to charge how much we charge and, 100, 120 an hour, but you can still make money off driving people privately. So it's all about your outlook and view, but I'm a let you get back to it. But the point I'm trying to make is you need to identify what you're coming into this business for, because if you don't, you're going to end up getting stuck. And people will be like, oh, it's just Uber. No, it's not just Uber. Uber is very difficult in a way of where if you don't understand what you're joining it for, or you don't know your end all be all goal as far as getting a job, or how you going to potentially use it as a stepping stone, you will get stuck. And most drivers do get stuck where they end up depending on rides, and they can't pay their bills because UberX comfort rides not really worth it. So you don't
Yeah.
want to get stuck to having to rely on them full time, which is why I preach to people, hey, build your own private clientele. That way you don't have to rely on Uber and Lyft.
No, that's so smart too. And I completely agree with that perspective. I think when you first become a rideshare driver, I think I'd say 90% of the people, and I'm making up a number, I don't really know,
Yes, sir.
but they're like, I need $100. I need $100 this weekend. Let me just turn on Uber, right? Right now we're going through the government shutdown. So all these people in DC probably are like, hey, let me just download Uber and make some money while the government shut down or something like that. And so they're not treating it like a business, right? But if you decide to stay with it, you're right. You got to treat it like a business. And I would say this is the fifth business I've launched. So I've done a couple others, sold them, and it's been good. But Uber, I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. And you're right. You got to treat it like a business. Before we jump onto that, because I really want to talk about Uber Black and learn your perspective,
Yes, sir.
because we don't have that up here, man. That sounds so cool. Um, well, the thing is, going back to that airport scenario. So again, I've been sitting in the airport lot for 15 minutes for free, right? Not getting paid. You get a $15, $20 ride. You're like, I got to take this. I've been, because this is what I got, whatever. Whatever the ride is, it doesn't matter.
Yes, sir.
And then so you go to that pickup spot, and that person comes out, and their stuff's not going to fit, and you're like, yeah, I could cancel for $3. Then I'm going back to that airport lot, and the frustrating thing, what I mean by it being hard, is you feel like you just wasted all your time. You know what I mean? And it's not like Uber doesn't care. Your fellow drivers don't care. Nobody cares. And that's what, just to be clear, that's what makes it hard. Because, yeah, being an oil field worker, that's really hard. I think I even used that in my video, right? The guy's covered with oil, and all you can see is the black, the white of their eyes or whatever. And but they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? There's a lot of jobs that are more difficult. I think being a surgeon or whatever, there's a ton of jobs that are much more difficult in terms of overall scale, but you're typically on a team, or you're getting paid more for the hassle of it. Not when you're an Uber driver and you have to cancel for $3. You have to sit there for 7 minutes or whatever it is to cancel for $3, with that person standing there looking at you. And that's, yeah, it's just really not that hard. I'll be honest with you. And I agree with you, Trey. And there are times I definitely tell people off. I canceled a bunch of rides yesterday. I'm like, at the 2 minute mark, cancel. I can see them in their doorway talking.
Right.
I'm like, cancel.
Right.
But what I want to make sure it's clear is, now that I'm a grandfather, I'm 50 something years old, and I do this for a living. I put in 30, 40, 50 hours a week. So this is my job.
Okay.
This is my profession. We're using the word job in the semantics, right? My profession. This is what I do to bring in money to feed the family.
Yes, sir.
Right? Now, what I was trying to say is, almost all of my life, I've been the boss, right? So and definitely, the companies that I owned, it was mine, right? My name was signing the checks, and then even when I sold my company and I started working for my friend, stuff like that, he was signing the checks, but I was still at the top of the company. When we deployed out for the invasion of Iraq, I was the one telling, people, you got to go here. This is where you're going to go. You're going to do this. I had a company that I commanded, I was always in charge. This is the first time since I was a little young guy, let's say in my early 20s, maybe even younger than that, that I've been the servant.
Yes, sir.
And that's probably the most difficult thing for me. And that's what I want to make sure that everybody understands. That's what that video was really about, was me trying to humble myself and saying, you know what? I know if I was inside at the airport, I just ordered an UberX. I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm not trying to be a jerk to that Uber driver. And me as the Uber driver, I'm overthinking it because I'm getting $3, and you start to overthink it. And so I think that's where your wisdom is, Trey. I think there was a lot of wisdom in what you were saying, and I really appreciated it, because I made a video trying to express my inner dialogue and why I think it's really difficult. But you're right. You talked about mindset. And I think your mindset was spot on. And I wanted to just give you a chance to just kind of just elaborate. Do you remember what you were talking about in that spot?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, I always tell people, and it kind of go hand in hand, like what I was saying, our outlook and view on everything really matters. It's kind of like your
Yeah.
perspective, right?
That's
Whatever
right.
your perspective is, that's kind of like what your decisions gonna go off of. Like, for
That's right.
example, you mentioned, the guy in the airport that's booking the X, he probably not thinking like it, thinking like that. But you on the other end, you overthinking it. Now you're just, your decision
Right.
is, all right, I'm gonna cancel. But you don't know the full story behind it, which is
That's
why you
right.
can't be so quick to jump the gun. So
Hmm.
like I said, perspective is everything. And, you going from this top position, which I respect and commend, by the way, being the boss, telling people what to do, being in charge, that is very hard to do, to come back down here to where now you're getting paid for pennies on a dollar. You're having to deal with rude, disrespectful people and people that don't value your time. So I understood that because I'm a business minded guy too. Like I
Mm.
understood, but I'm also still on the pole of like, man, it's your car. So it's just like you pick and choose which, who you want in and who you want out. So
Yeah.
prospectively, it's like I said, it's the outlook. So I kind of
Well,
broke it down. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, yeah, I think that's super is that's that's the thing I want to encourage all the drivers out there. And I think Trey has the right idea. If I was in Houston, yeah, I'd be signing up for his platform and trying to figure out a way I can get my own, sometimes, now I don't know if you know this, Trey,
Yes, sir.
upstate New York, I am like 5 hours away from New York City.
Okay.
So every now and then I catch a ride down there and I'll be down in New York City and you see all those Uber black guys. I'm super jealous because it looks awesome. The highest we have here is Uber Comfort.
Uber
Now
comfort. Okay.
you can get Uber XL, but the problem is there's not enough. And I'll tell you about the economics of it after you explain your side to it. But the reality is there's just not enough rides. So if you buy a Chevy Suburban, you just 80% of the rides you're going to get are still Uber X. And you might be able to build a private clientele.
Yes,
I
sir.
think that is possible. But yeah, but I think it's a lot easier when you're in a big city, and when Uber's feeding you the clients and you're able to just siphon them off. You're not going to be getting those type of clients on a regular basis as a Uber X driver, occasionally doing XL or occasionally doing comfort. Like if I do 100 rides this week, I'd say five of them are going to be Uber comfort.
Oh, wow.
Right. So you see, those five aren't going to pay the bills. And if I can transition maybe one of them to a private client, maybe. But that's a whereas like if you just do Uber Black, you just be banking them in. Every single ride is a potential customer, right? Is that how you look at it?
Nah, not really, because being in the Uber Black business, everybody's not your target audience. Just because they take in
Okay.
an Uber Black don't mean they in that tax bracket to afford you privately, depending on
Okay.
your hourly rate, of course.
Sure, sure.
Now, I want to go back to what we talked about earlier because my
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
background, yeah, my background, I I was in the oil field. So whenever you talked about that, I was like, that's
Dude,
you the oil field is
that,
tough.
I bet. What did you do?
I was a floor hand. So I did the work you was pretty much talking about. I was covering it. I actually got pictures I can send you to upload in the video. I was
Okay.
covered in oil from head to toe. And it was tough. And I barely lasted a month, man. That it was just not my type of field. I'm like, I'm more of a brains kind of guy, but I was needing like to make money fast. And the only way to do that is blue collar, putting your body on the line. So
Yeah.
that's why I went to that. I also started driving trucks at 19 all the way up into
Hmm.
24. So I did all the physical labor jobs that's, some people may perceive to be tough. And
Hmm.
that is tough mentally. But when it comes to life, when things get difficult, that's where perseverance come into play. You got to look at the bigger
Hmm.
picture.
Yeah.
And kind of like me reacting to your video, I'm like, you just got to look at the bigger picture, and you're not going to know the bigger picture until you identify what you're in it for. And a lot of times, like these drivers get caught up in their emotions. They don't know what they in it for. A side hustle led to a full-time job now, and a full-time job that don't pay well if you do X and comfort and you're not building a clientele. Which,
Yeah.
like you said, everybody can't build a clientele. And to me, I think as black car driver, if you buy a Chevy Suburban to do X rides and comfort rides, man, you wasting your time. Because nine times out of 10, people that's taking X and comfort rides, they're not going to be able to afford your services, you know? So
Hmm.
that's me being as transparent as possible to the viewers that's listening.
Yeah, dude, you did oil work, dude. I've only seen like videos. You did it for a month?
Yeah, I did it. Well, I did it. So I had two oil jobs. First oil job was it was kind of like the oil field. I was still a floor hand, but I didn't get as dirty. I was kind of doing like the pipes and stuff. Like we laid down the pipes that connect to these oil rigs.
Hmm.
I forget what it was specifically, but we just did the piping work. We still got dirty, but not as much. So I lasted there for about 2.5 months. I'll just say 2 months, and then my other oil job, the one I just told you about, I lasted for a month. And the reason I lasted for a month is because the conditions, man. Like you got to be out there for 14 days straight, doing the same stuff for 12 to 14 hours, dirty. You got to live with other guys that you don't know from different parts of the world. Y'all sharing one shower. And if you want food, you got to go drive 30 minutes to an hour to another town to go get it. If not, you
Dang.
go into like Dollar Store or Walmart to go buy a bunch of snacks and stuff. That way you can live off on, for the 14 days you out there or the 7 days you out there, however long you go out there for.
But you had to get some money out of that though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So me being that oil field worker, I was averaging anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200 a week, which is not a lot of money, by the way. Depending on whether you got a family or not.
Yeah, but that's a step up though. I mean, that's you were entry level, right? There was I know there are guys out there making 150, $200,000 a year. There's oil oil hands, right? I mean, they're making some good money, right?
So yeah, it goes up. It's floor hand, derrick hand, and then you got the toolsman. So yes, now the derrick man make a little bit more money than the floor hand. He's a little bit more experienced and stuff, so he makes more money. But I would argue the ones that's really making 150, 200K a year is the people that's operating the rig. The people that's in
Okay.
the office. It's nine times out of ten not the regular workers.
Really?
Yeah, and it's crazy because those are the ones that's actually doing the hard work. I mean, I'm not saying the guys that's in the office not doing hard work. You do have to have brains to run a rig properly. But I'm saying like the physical work, I feel like them workers should get paid a little bit more.
I always heard they made a killing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I've never done it. I've only seen movies and TikToks and stuff, so I don't really know.
And of course, to the people out there, I want to make something very clear. This is down here in South Texas. I know it's oil rigs throughout the world, a little bit different, but down here, Odessa, Midland, it gets super hot, super hot. And then when it's cold, it's super cold. So those conditions, and you covered in, imagine you covered in oil and mud, and it's freezing outside. You just gonna be
Dang.
freezing. Or if it's
Just
super high, you just gonna be stuck out there, super hot.
man, a lot of respect to anybody that does that kind of work. That's just really super hard.
Yes,
So
sir.
you decided you're like, hey, that ain't for me, because that ain't for me either. I'm gonna point out these hands. These are keyboard hands, man.
Facts. I'm with you, Levi.
I'm keyboard hands here. I had this. I'll tell you a funny story. I have a YouTube channel, right? So people send me stuff to put on my Tesla. Like, hey, can you do a YouTube video for this? I'm like, sure. They'll send me a piece of equipment and I'll put it on my Tesla, whatever. Sometimes they send me stuff. I'm like, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna pay for anybody to do it, and I definitely don't want to start opening up stuff and getting my hands greasy to be put. I don't care what you pay me for that YouTube video. I don't, I don't really want to do
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
But so you decided to go on into the world of trucking. You decided so you went from the fields to the truck. What made you think that? That's
Because
pretty.
my whole goal when I was young, fresh out of high school, I'm like, man, I do not want to go to college because I can find me a blue collar job that pay me more than people that go get degrees. So I was weighing my options. Whenever I start driving trucks, it was hard to get your CDL at 18. I got mine at 19, barely. Like they did not want to give it to me, which is why I got into the oil field first because I was waiting until I turned 21 to get my CDL. But
Uh,
by the grace of God, they pulled some strings and I was able to get my CDL at 19. So I only got into oil rigs just because it was still a good way to make a lot of money, blue collar wise, without having to get a degree. Which I would argue a lot of people down south here in Texas, they do that. They don't want to go get college degrees because you're gonna be in student debt. You're gonna have to pay that back. So I always knew I was a smart guy. I already identified it before I got into it. Like, hey man, this is a stepping stone to get to the next level. So all the money I made from the oil field, I invested into getting my CDL. So basically I taught
Nice.
myself how to drive a truck, watching YouTube videos. So I got my CDL permit by watching videos, being online. I got my permit, and then I learned how to drive a truck because my dad had an old truck that barely ran. I just went out there, played with the gear shifter, learning how to
Yeah.
turn and stuff. And like I said, I took that money and invested into a school that helped me get my CDL. So I ended up getting my CDL. Like I said, at 19, drove from 19 to 24. All that money I made from 19 to 24, I saved. I lived on less than what I made. I'm telling you, I was a cheapskate. Like I lived probably like on less than 10%, and I was doing pretty well. A 19-year-old guy making 12 to 1400 a week from
That's nice.
19 to 24. You able to save a lot of money, man, a lot of money. And I took
Yeah.
that money and just invested into the ride share business. Now, and I want to make something very clear before you ask the next question.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
by accident, Levi. Like, I'm not supposed to be in the fleet business, which I'll go into later on in the video of why I'm actually in the Uber Black business.
No, no, that's good. No, so that's so much. That's exactly how I have kids that are older than you. Actually, probably my daughter's 27, so I don't know. Maybe you're right around the same age. But I have a son that's 23, and I tell him the same thing: just live less than what you make. Keep saving it and keep pushing toward that next thing, whatever it is, because you may accidentally get into something, and you got accidentally into rideshare.
Yeah, accidentally. So, like I said, I drove trucks from 19 to 24. I quit driving because here's the thing. I was so as I was driving trucks, I was also doing side hustles because after a while, truck driving it take a toll on you mentally. It's
Yeah,
just like rideshare. You by yourself. A lot of these drivers talk to people and they on the phone constantly. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm like trying to
yeah,
figure out my next move. So I always was
yeah,
really solo, watching podcasts, trying to figure out what to do next
yeah.
financially with the money. So I start side hustling on social media, specifically TikTok. I start running faceless pages on TikTok and YouTube. Man, when I tell you the money was like crazy, I was printing crazy money back in like
Hmm.
2023, 2024. And I was so like, I grew up low middle class. So my parents taught me to always work a job, be reliable on that job. So I had that mentality. I was more focused on stability rather than taking risks. Like I was doing well for a young guy, but I was still had that stability mindset. So one time I had made like 25 grand off TikTok. And I was like, no, I'm gonna still go to work. But my partner was telling me, what you doing? Like quit your job. Like do this full time. So eventually I ended up quitting at 24. So I quit driving trucks. Me and her was doing the social media stuff. I had her quit her job. We was doing
That's when
our
I found you, I think, too.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we started doing the social media stuff, and I'm like, man, for those of you that don't know, social media is like this. It's a quantity game. How much you post, how much quality you add, and value that determines on how much money you make. So I started panicking because I was used to that stability from the truck driving job. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I told her, I'm like, man, the money is still good. Like I got money saved up, but I'm tired of having to dig in my savings to pay bills and stuff. So I was thinking about going back to get a job. And one day, this crazily happened. We was on the highway. I was on my phone and this car was in front of me and it just brake checked me for no reason. Like traffic was way ahead. And then I hit my brakes. And then as it, after they brake checked me, obviously they got off the brakes and then I braked. Once they got off the brakes, I started accelerating again. But they double brake checked me, and I wasn't ready for that second one. So I end up like, doing like a love tap on their rear bumper. Next thing you
Yeah.
know, my little front bumper messed up on my car. And I'm like, damn. So now we on side the highway. I'm just plotting. I'm like, okay, just had my first accident, small fender bender, a little frustrated, upset, whatever. So now I'm like, I got to get rid of this car. I don't want it. And we just sat down. I'm like, what we gonna do? Like, am I gonna continue to do social media to try to make a big check again, or am I gonna go back to work a job? She's like, you don't
Mm.
have to work a job. Let's exercise our options. So we just started getting on social media to figure out what's a good amount of income that could be compared to working a trucking job without actually working a job? Uber Black popped up. She mentioned it to me. I'm like, what the hell is Uber Black? I didn't know what it was. I heard of Uber, but I didn't know what Uber Black was. So she was like, oh, it looked like it's like a luxury Uber where you drive around people that got money. So I'm like, all right, cool. We did our research. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try it. So the car I end up messing up a little bit. I traded it in for a blacked out Range Rover. And that Range Rover is
That's
still in my
nice.
fleet
Yeah.
today. I actually got a driver for it. So I got the Range Rover. I was obviously, like I said, a guy that took care of my stuff financially. So I had an LLC created. I bought that Range Rover under my LLC. Everything I bought in this business was under my LLC. And, I tried Uber Black for 1 week. And I'll go into the details of how it fully operates. I'm just trying to give you a quick summary of my story.
Don't
Basically,
sweat it.
second week, after I financed the Rover, I started driving Black. Now, with Uber Black, they take a couple of days to process your documents. So Lyft Black ended up approving me first. My first night of driving rideshare, like the Black part, I made $300. It was like 250, but as the night ended, people started tipping me last minute, which
That's of
that
course.
happens
Yeah.
if you're a rideshare driver. So I'm like, dang, I made basically $300. That's not bad, and that wasn't really a lot of Black rides. That was like comfort. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna go out and try it again. But long story short, I'm trying to make it quick. I ended up making like 2 grand, like two to 2,500, 2,000 to 2,500 that first week of driving. And I'm like, oh wow, that's good money. Me driving a truck, I was barely making 12 to 14. And also keep in mind, I was putting in more hours. Me
Good.
working like rideshare, that was only like 8 to 10 hours worth of work.
Yep.
So that's when I'm like, okay, cool. I see some opportunity in this field. Now, me and her agreed. I was like, I'm gonna try it again. This time I'm gonna give it my all. I'm gonna work 12 hours. Now I start making 400 a day. I'm like, dang, 400 a day, already in 3 days, that's 1,200. So I just kept going. I just kept going. And then I switched my mindset into, man, I'm making 400. Uber taking half of that. So I really could be basically touching a grand a day. So that's when I start coming up with this plan of, I'm gonna build my own private clientele, because if they
Hmm.
taking half of what I make, I could be averaging $1,000 per day.
That's
So
right.
start building my own clientele, and then the rest was history. I'm like, damn, I did not know you can make this type of money just driving people around. If I known that, I would have been and got into the business. But that's kind of like my story of how I got into it by accident. Long story short, end
By
up
a
getting in the
literal
car.
accident.
Literal accident. Yeah.
Dang. No, that's so good. That's so much, again, that's super smart because what you did was you saw that a little bit of money, but instead of just saying, here's what my cap is, you're going to leverage that into something different. Now you got a fleet of cars. Well, how many cars are in your fleet now?
Yes, sir. So I got 3 cars right now that I own, and I got 3 drivers. So
Nice.
basically, how this works, I run a fleet directly through like Uber, where people that
Hmm.
want to drive Uber Black, they can drive it if they can't afford their own car. So it's kind of
Got it.
like they rent the car from me, but I still
Hmm.
consider them my driver because I still get a lot of private clients in per day. And I'll be like,
Hmm.
hey, so and so, could you go service this client for me? And it's kind of like me being a middleman again, but I pay them very well because
But
it's
you're
like,
dispatching now.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I pay them more than like what Uber pay because I respect people time. I respect people time.
Yeah, that's so good too. How big do you think can get your fleet? What's your vision?
I ain't really sought after like how many cars I want to scale to. If I wanted to, I can buy 5 more cars
Mm.
and put renters in them. But right now, I'm just really paying attention to the market. I'm thinking about adding another vehicle, another driver here shortly.
Hmm.
I don't think I want to scale too big though, because like I said, this was a business by accident.
Hmm.
It wasn't like something I wanted to do. Something I really wanted to do was get into the trucking business. I wanted my
Hmm.
own trucks, not nothing like what y'all see on the highway. I'm more of like a dump truck kind of guy. So I wanted to get into like dump trucks, get contracts with the city, stuff like that. So I might scale to another, maybe 2 more cars, and then I might pause it and just run my little fleet.
Cut your little fleet. Now, you have a course on this, right? I mean, I know you don't want to give away the secret sauce on your course, right? But I went to your website and I checked. Your website looked great and everything. And I agree with you, by the way. Website gives you complete credibility for the consumer side for your clients, right? It makes you look legit.
Yes, sir.
And yeah. So, but I was taking a look through your stuff. You have a course. What? Why would somebody want to hire you for a course on how to do this? What?
So yeah, good question. So I don't have a course. I got a
Oh,
mentorship. Yeah, I got a
okay.
mentorship. So I got one product called the Rideshare Blueprint. The Rideshare Blueprint is basically a product that give you a shortcut to understanding the logistics of the rideshare business. That means times to drive, target audience. I got my top 4 commercial insurance companies that I recommend, pretty much for people that's on the Uber Black side. Now, if you're a regular Uber driver and you want to potentially get to the Uber Black side, that's a good product for you to check out. But the other one, the main one you're talking about, is my mentorships. And just to give you the best answer possible, I'm not kidding, Levi, hundreds of DMs per day of people asking me different things of how the Uber Black business works, asking for my advice. So that's what made
Yeah.
me want to create the mentorships, because I give out good, valuable advice that people didn't know about. So people pretty much book me, which is crazy because I'm booked up now. I'm working with people every hour of the day, but they book me so they can kind of build and scale their own private clientele because they don't know how to do it. They just kind of, like what I said in the beginning of the video, just got into it without a full plan. And I helped them develop a plan and, A through Z of this is what you're going to do to build and scale your own private clientele. Once you build and scale a private clientele of, let's say, 5 to 10 consistent clients, if you want to move towards fleet ownership where you buy another vehicle and put a driver in or more drivers in, you can do that as well. And I will help you out with that as well. So pretty much just to coach them on what to do to build a private clientele and also become a fleet owner.
Because you're an expert. You've done it.
Yeah, in less than a year, I know a lot of people like, man, like, oh man, that's how you do that, yada yada yada. And it's just like paying attention, man. Like I work every day, 7 days a week, man. Probably like 18 to 20 hours per day. So I want to make something very clear to the audience out there. I'm not like a normal guy. I work like a maniac. And my audience pretty much know that. Like before this meeting, I just had got out of a meeting with one of my students.
Yeah. I
That's why I was kind of late. I'm like, oh, give me a second. So, I was able to scale because I pay attention, man. And once I got out there as a driver, I'm a real networker. I really talk to people. I have access to high net worth people and my contacts. So at any given moment, if I need anything from these people or I want to convert more clients, I got people to help me do so.
That's good. Yeah, that's so smart. Yeah, I followed your TikTok a long time ago,
Okay.
and your partner, the female, okay, so I kind of caught all that,
Yes, sir.
and then you gave some advice that was just mind blowing to me. Now, I have bottled water for when I do airport runs. In fact, I'll do some longer trips. I don't recommend longer trips for money. Trust me, it's not worth it.
Yes,
But I
sir.
do it sometimes just for like experimental stuff. Makes for good YouTube content a little bit. But I'll go and I'll get bottled water before I bring it. You recommended glass. That was so tight. That was such good advice because it's right. A cheap little bottle of water means nothing. But when you have like a little glass bottle of water, that just elevates everything. It wasn't cost you a dollar or two more. I mean, it's not really that expensive, but it just says everything about the quality of the service that you're trying to offer.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's a different type, and I drink them all day, Levi. You know? So I'm not just talking, man. I actually live what I talk about. Like, I'm not joking.
Dude, that is so good. I know you're a busy guy and I appreciate getting some of your time out. I could spend hours and hours talking to you because I think you've got a lot of really good, sharp insights there.
Yes, sir.
And I really recommend people go out and follow Trey, T-Jack, the account. He's got a YouTube account, TikTok, and he's really good at producing content. Is your long-term goal to kind of turn that into another big revenue stream, YouTube and or TikTok?
Yeah, not really my goal, man. My goal is just to try to help as many people as possible, and I know as a byproduct of that, that will eventually happen. Like I'm not just all about money. I had money before I came to social media,
Yeah.
so My goal is to just continue to be the best version of myself, show up every day, help as many people as I possibly can. And me doing that, a byfactor of that is just, maximizing my revenue streams on social media.
What are you listening to these days?
As far as
What
podcasts,
podcasts,
uh,
audiobooks? What are you reading?
so I listen to a lot of podcasts. Favorite guy to listen to is Alex Hormozy.
Of course,
I,
that's all the work hours. Yep, I
yes,
knew it.
I
I
like
knew it.
I like Myron Golden. I don't know if you
Okay.
heard of Myron. He's pretty
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Cody Sanchez, she's a female. Man, she killing it right now.
She's got the simple business or the small business or
Yes,
whatever. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and she's killing it. And some of my advice and how I operate is listening to her and the other people's that I mentioned as well.
Man.
Here's the thing, whenever you want to build something, you got to have systems in place. That you
Hmm.
have to have systems in place. You can't do everything yourself. So that's kind of like how I was able to get successful super fast. You have to pay attention to everything, and you paying attention to everything, having systems in place, and just being in the right environments, being around the right people, having the right network will take you a long way, and you able to scale fast. Like people don't believe you can scale fast in the Uber business. And I'm like, you absolutely can. Rideshare is not going nowhere. I get people asking me every day, Trey, what you think about robo taxis or cyber taxis? I'm like, man, that 50% of people will like that. Keep in mind, the other 50% of people won't like that. Some people actually like a person driving them. And if you're a black car driver, in the black car service, that's not your target audience anyway to build a private clientele because they want
No.
cheap rides. I heard the
Sure.
robo taxis, the cyber taxis, gonna be like $4, $5 per ride. That's not your target audience,
No.
So
No. That's so true. Well, we got just a few minutes left here, and what questions do you have for me? What are things that you want to know? What can I help you with?
absolutely, yeah. So, and I was gonna get to that. You know, thanks for bringing that back up. Now, my question to you is, how do you survive as a UberX comfort driver with like the low fares? Because drivers here in Houston, they tell me they average anywhere between $100 to $200 per day. But I know making that type of money with X, you run your car into the ground, right? Like that's a lot of hours you have to put in to make $200. So could you chime in on that?
Yeah, I think if I was in Houston, I wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? I couldn't do it.
Okay.
In upstate New York, if you do it right, I could still do between $300 to $400 a day in revenue.
Oh
Now
wow.
I have a lot of expenses off of that, right? And so I'm making about 70 cents on the dollar. Um, so 30 of that of the 400, 100 is going to go to my depreciation on my vehicle, electricity because I got a Tesla, maintenance and stuff like that. So I do have some expenses, and you have to Houston's a big city, right? Syracuse is like 200,000 people.
Ah, okay.
Right now, I have other cities around me that are like 50 miles away. So I'll drive 50 miles away to another city, like tonight down in Ithaca, Cornell University. They have homecoming night, right? So there'll be surges. There'll be 10, 15, 20, maybe even $30 surges. So you go down there and you go from like 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., you do a 12-hour shift. You could do $400, but you got to go down there and grind. So I'll take a lot of short rides, a lot of short rides. Um, I'll go to schools like, so colleges dominate college students and stuff like that. So you just got to set your car up in a way to appeal to them. So like one of the things I was talking about was playlist. I think a lot of college girls think Uber drivers are going to kill them, mug them. I don't know. That's the meme around the internet, right? A lot of lecherous guys. So I have a playlist between SZA and some Taylor Swift stuff and some real cool chill vibe music that when I know it's college girls, I'm picking them up. I could see them as I'm pulling in. I just hit a little button on my Tesla and it brings the vibe. And then I'm a grandfather. I dress like a grandfather. I want them to look and go, he's like that. Whereas if I'm picking up a frat guy, I just switch it around and I could pick up maybe a Bad Bunny or Kendrick Lamar and we can amp it up a little bit. If the girls are doing party night, I could do the same thing. So music is kind of like my baseline of how I'm watching to because the goal is to get surges and tips.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that I do really, really, really well is I kill it in the tip world. Most UberX drivers will say they get 1 out of 20 people tip them or whatever else. About 40 to 50% of my passengers tip me
Wow, that's good.
at UberX, right? Because I'm thinking, like when I was talking about my other video, I really want to put myself in that servant mindset. I'm here to serve you, whatever your needs are. And it's humbling, because I could be the boss, right? And
Absolutely.
so it's like a little bit of a mindset shift. Say, I'm here to serve you. You're worried about some guy that may kill you. So let me set my car up in a way to make you feel safe and just simple things like that. So how do I make it as an UberX driver? I drive a lot more miles. So my miles go way up. So I try to position myself in cities like Auburn or Ithaca or Binghamton when I think there's going to be surges to maximize those revenues. And I'll take a lot of $4 rides waiting for that surge. And if you're in that $4 zone, it's really small.
Yes,
Like
sir.
boom, bars let out, surges go up, and then you take a lot of short rides. You just got to decline the long rides that are going to take you a lot of different places. And then I kind of bookend that with like long reservations. So let's say I'll do Ithaca, but I'll have a 4 a.m. reservation from Ithaca to Syracuse, which is about an hour away, and I'll make $100 on that one ride, right?
Wow.
Because it'll be a $60 ride with a $40 tip, and so you kind of bookend it. So I'll try to, and yeah, it's a big system, and during the summertime, I'll be happy with 250, but during the winter, on a good night, I'll try to do that. So yeah, that's kind of how I do
So
it.
you
And
averaging, not to cut you off, but like around 4 or 5 grand a month?
oh no, like 8,000.
Oh, 8,000. Okay. Oh, because you work Monday through Friday as well, not just the weekends.
Yeah, I do it full time.
Oh,
Yeah.
7 days a week. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I do try to take Sunday off. Like I'll be going to church tomorrow morning. I'll be
Okay.
seeing them surges too. I'll be like, dang it, I should be out there Uber driving, but I'll go to church.
You a smart guy though, because look, Levi, not a lot of drivers operate. You won't believe it, but not a lot of drivers operate like that. They just go out in hopes that they make a certain amount of money. They don't have a target audience. To me, you telling me that your target audience is people that's a little bit younger, college
Yeah,
crowd, and you know how to cater to them by
that's right.
music. And you had a very valid point. A lot of these Uber drivers are weird, creepy guys.
That's
And
right.
that's kind of like whenever I used to drive, I set the tone. I'm playing pop. I even made a video the other day. Play pop, man. Like there's so many good songs with pop that kind of like set
Yeah.
the tone with your SUV.
That's right. And then so like, let's say I got that 4 a.m. reservation. Before I go pick it up, I'll clean the car up. I'll put down the carpet mat. Now I'm doing UberX, but whatever. I have a rubber mat over my carpet mat. But when I think I'm going to give a nicer ride, I just switch those two mats, make sure it's cleaned out. I don't fragrant my car, but I do clean it out, make sure it doesn't smell. And then, put a water bottle down or two. Gonna be glass coming up.
Yes, sir. I,
I'll get some glass ones. And then what I do is I put on some Miles Davis or
okay.
Coltrane. And I keep the volume really low and stuff like that. And I think there's a way to communicate with people. Not everybody wants to talk. I get that. So I'm not trying to talk to every passenger, but watching some of those podcasts, like what you're talking about, I try to, I don't ask a lot of questions. I make statements that prompt them to want to communicate if they want to communicate. So going back to that college girl, I'd be like, it's really pretty night, isn't it?
Okay. So you warm up the conversation basically.
If they're not interested in talking, they'll be on their phone. They'll be like, yeah. I'll be like, okay, that's cool. But they'll be like, oh, it was so lovely. They'll start telling me about their time with their friend. I was like, yeah, it's so good to have college and have friends. I don't have to ask them questions. I just reaffirm what they're saying because I do care.
Yes, sir.
Because you want them to talk about themselves.
Yes. People love to do that. You want to keep
People
that.
love to do that. And so yeah, so that long reservation, it'll be like they'll get in the car like, oh my God, thank God, I was so worried and Uber wouldn't even show up because we live out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yes, sir.
And so they're like, oh my God, and you're like, yeah, of course I'm here for you. Now it's an hour long drive. Is there any place you want to stop along the way or whatever? No, just give me the airport. Yeah, you just have those conversations. It's hard to have a one-way conversation with myself. I can't. I have to make some videos of me just talking to passengers in the car, maybe.
Hey,
But
that's a good idea. I used to do that. If people go on you could check it out too. It's on my channel. I used to have this dash cam, Van True, It records
Yeah.
everything 360, and I used to record my conversations with drivers. I ended up getting an NFL football player too, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
You know, one of the things I've been trying to do is tell these stories, but I think passengers appreciate the anonymity of being in the car. So I definitely don't show my passengers' faces, and I don't, I might use their voice once to prove that it's really a person in the car, but then I'll switch to just text. So that way, if they're going to tell me something intimate and personal, I don't think they want that on the internet. So you kind of want to, but I think that's what it is. And so how do you make money as an UberX driver? You got to go to where the rides are, and you have to go to where drivers aren't willing to go. Because if you're down there and there's five other drivers sitting there parked on the corner with you, there's nothing gonna. You're not gonna make any money. It's impossible. Not Uber Black. I've seen some of your videos, and you guys are all lined up around the hotel. That's a different game, and I don't understand it. But for UberX, you want to be as far away from other drivers as possible, but you want to be where people are looking for rides, and so you just got to find those sweet spots. And I was telling you about Cornell Homecoming.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go down there today because every other Uber driver on the Facebook groups are talking about going to Cornell's homecoming game. I'm like, well, that ain't gonna go because they're all gonna be down there already. Go where they're not. Like play the just as like one level ahead of them. Like, oh, if they're all gonna be there, but nobody's gonna be there, I'll go there. And yeah, that's kind of how the game is.
That's good to hear, and that's very clever and smart being in a smaller city as well with
Yeah,
200,000 people, and it's still like a lot of Uber drivers. So respect to that. It's all about knowing where to be
yeah.
and what time to be.
Yeah. If I were to give people more advice, Tristan's another future rideshare millionaire. He's another Uber driver YouTube channel that I like. He
Okay.
talks about it from a financial perspective. And I just live a cheap life. If you're cheap, if I have a bad week where I only bring in $1,000, that's okay. I got a cheap life. My life is pretty, I don't spend a lot of money. If you don't spend a lot of money, you don't need a lot of money. And so I have a very cheap home. I live in a small little area. I live about 30 miles from any place where Uber exists. I have to drive
Wow.
30 miles just to get the Uber app to ping me, you know? Um, and so, yeah, so my advice to people that are in cities, UberX, I would level up. I would level up to Uber Black. I'd find everything I could to do Uber Black. Like, I love the way you did that.
My question to you, Levi, is, what's your end all be all as a rideshare driver? Like, do you plan on making this a business, or you just, because I know you a little older and retirement and stuff come into play. Like, do you plan on just doing this for the rest of your life? Or like, do you plan on buying more cars and just renting them out to like Uber drivers? Like, what's the goal here?
Yeah, it's hard for a lot of other drivers to hear. I'm not rich. I have to work. I
Okay.
mean, okay, I'm not rich. When you say you sell a company, people hear a lot of things. They got numbers in their mind. That's not necessarily how it always works out. I've got kids. I got a grandkid. My wife has always been a stay-at-home mom, and so I need to work. But for me, Uber is like the perfect spot for me to be in. It's the perfect job. I do find it hard, and that's what spurred this conversation. But when a passenger's in the car and it's perfect, and they're happy with the service that you're providing, and maybe you have a really neat conversation where you're just there to listen for them, that's the best. I would pay. Don't Dara, don't hear this, but I would pay to do it. I love it. I really truly do. I think that's the best job I've ever had in the world. So it's hard when I say something. It seems like juxtaposed against each other. I'll make a video. Like, it's really hard, and that's just me empathizing with a lot of the other drivers that are out there to some extent because they got nobody else. So I'm going to vocalize it. I think my internal dialogue is what a lot of other drivers feel.
Yes.
So I just want to say it, and I'll put myself vulnerable out there for everybody else to feel. But the truth is, it's so much fun for me just to pick up people and hear their thing. And it could be just an Amazon worker. Like, I had this guy picked him up from Amazon. He was just telling me about Amazon delivery. And I wasn't trying to juice him for a tip. And he didn't tip me, by the way. I just love hearing about it. And I've been down in Tampa, but now I'm up here. And he's just telling me about the electric Amazon vehicles. And I'm fascinated by it. And so for me, it's like these short little conversations. So Financially speaking, long term, this. I think the YouTube channel. I think I have clients. I have people that pay me to help them with video production and other stuff too. But I try to live off of Uber. So I look at Uber to give myself credibility in the community because I think there's a lot of really good content creators. They don't Uber drive anymore. They're already making their money, so they've exited the business. I go out and I Uber drive all the time to stay in touch with what's going on and experiencing the app and experiencing passengers, just to give myself as much credibility. But yeah, I think financially speaking, there's no way if you don't do Uber Black and don't create a fleet business, there's no financial escape from this. I think my heart goes out to those drivers in Houston. I think about that all the time. They're just driving a Camry, UberX, and making maybe $500, $700 a week, or maybe 1,000. I don't know, whatever, even $1,500. Houston's expensive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know how they do it, and so I want to be a voice for them at least, and kind of communicate all that. Yeah,
So and that's why I like and respect about you the most, because it's like not a lot of people are able to do that. You in the business, so you hands on, boots on the ground, learning, talking, talking to people, and then you come back to YouTube, TikTok, and talk about it, and
yeah,
you're able to reel in the audience because you talk about a lot what they feel, and they like, oh man, he's speaking some good stuff. So that builds a community. And at the end of the day, that's very important, especially in a solo business like Uber, where you independent driver,
yeah. I'm friends with a lot of the guys, the other content creators out there, and they all come at from a different perspective. Like I say, so Sergio, he's talking to the executives, Sergio and Chris and the rideshare guy and those guys,
Okay.
Harry, they're talking to the executives, and they're kind of like they all know they know the industry better, from that perspective. You got Torsten, the rideshare professor. He's just funny, man. Made my son just laugh at his YouTube channel. He's putting on a mask and everything, but he does like you. He's created a fleet. I think he's got like 100 cars in his fleet, but he teaches people how to do that. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And Tristan, everybody, the drivers coast to coast over on X. That was Lynn, Matt, and Chuck. They all have different channels. They all create things from different perspectives. I'm just trying to get to the heart of it because I know there's a lot of single moms out there just getting abused by these apps and by passengers, and they got their Nissan Sentra, and they've already dropped the kid off at school, and they're driving in the middle of the day.
Yep.
That's hard. That is freaking hard. And nobody, and Dara and the Uber people at Lyft and stuff like that, they don't care. They don't care. And these people are making like $10 an hour, driving their car around and getting crapped on by passengers, And so I just want to start making content that communicates that because I want people that are outside the industry to know what it's like. Because they'll be like, you just drive a car. Well, it's so much more than driving a car. And you
Ab-
know that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You
It-
definitely, it's multiple skill sets you have to be an Uber driver.
yeah.
This is not just driving people around.
Yeah, especially with the app game and everything. See, that's the thing that's the most difficult that people don't understand is the app is working against you. The app is trying to trick you into making bad decisions so they can make a little bit more money, and then you just cash out your depreciation.
Yep. Yep. Like I tell people all the time, and I know we running low on time, there's no
Yeah.
difference between advantage mode and standard mode. Man, I talk to plenty of diamond drivers. There's no difference. I got students in my community that's diamond drivers. They don't notice a difference. They just want to mind trick you into accepting
Hmm.
every ride. That way you more profitable. You put you put more money in their pocket. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, they trying to squeeze everything they can out of each drivers to be more profitable. I forget on one
Yeah.
of my videos, I said Uber made like 45 billion or something like that last year.
Yeah.
You think they, worried about the drivers like that? No.
That- yeah. I'll leave you this thought, though, we'll wrap. But, Trey, I went to Dara's Twitter, Dara Khosrowshahi, the CEO of Uber. I went to his Twitter feed and I looked and just searched for the word driver. He didn't even use the word. He doesn't really, you know what I mean? Like his mind is not on the driver. He's on an app. He's on expansion of services. and God bless him. I don't mind him making money, but I
Absolutely.
think but I think there's like a an abuse of drivers that I'm not even sure the company is even aware of, how abusive they can be, and so I want to speak to that. Hey, but I'll wrap up the video, but I want to hear one more question from you. What's your advice if somebody's going to get in the business today,
Yes, sir.
rideshare business, Uber Black, whatever it is? What kind of advice do you have for them, man?
Yes. So first thing I would tell them is to identify what they getting into it for. So are you
Mm,
getting into it to treat it like a business, or are you getting into it to make extra cash? Once you identify that thing, you need to act on that. So if you come in to treat it like a business, your goal is to do the platforms, but also keep in mind about building your own clientele. That way you more profitable and not relying on the rideshare platforms, and you more profitable in the end, because at the end of the day, Uber and Lyft cap you. You know what I mean? You're only gonna be able to make a couple $100 per day depending on what type of rideshare you're doing, or the type of rides you're doing. Now, when it comes to just making extra cash, I would use it as a tool to potentially network with people you pick up. We pick up all types of people, different people in different industries. So if you're just trying to make extra cash and you want to work a job, a good paying job, try to network with people that could potentially put you in position to do so. I talked to plenty of people that have been in different industries, whatever, and it's just important that if you're treating it as a side hustle, to talk to people, because you never know who can change your life. With one ride, you can pick up a person that can change your life completely. And I've done it multiple times. And, at the end of the day, once you kind of like identify that, that kind of like sets you up for success, because if you're treating it like a side hustle, you're able to exit without getting stuck in it and having to
mhm.
work it. And if you're treating it like a business, it sets you up for success to utilize the platforms as a lead system rather than, a full-time job of setting in certain spots waiting for them to give you rides. Now you going outside of the rideshare platforms to go network with people. You going to events, coffee shops, whatever you got to do to sell people your service. So that's my advice to drivers out there. Whether you're a regular Uber driver, Uber Black driver, just know what you're in it for. That way you always have an exit plan and escape route. Because I would hate for you to get stuck into this business. Now you've been doing it a decade, barely getting by. And it's not fun when you live in paycheck to paycheck.
No, that's so when I finished graduate school at Syracuse University hired me to run a small business incubator, helping people launch businesses and stuff like that. And that was the first thing we told people. And we'd be like, hey, now Syracuse is the number one entrepreneurship business school in America. So it's really good. It knows what they're talking about. And we would tell businesses, what's your exit strategy? You're going to create this business, but what's your exit strategy? And everybody's exit strategy is going to be different, but you got to know it ahead of time. And Trey, you're spot on with that, man. You're totally spot on.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, it was lovely, man. I'm so glad, we connected. I'm a big fan of all the stuff you're producing, and I'm going to tell everybody, please, obviously, on the YouTube channel, you can subscribe right from the top here on the YouTube channel to Trey's channel. But follow him on TikTok because that's where I found him. It's the best. He's making, what are you making, like 5 videos a day now? You're killing it.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to put out more, man. My
Yep.
schedule been booked up. Like I said, I work with people every day. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
put out 10, 20 videos per day.
Yeah,
And
better.
in the future, I really like this. I'm gonna let you know, Levi, I really enjoyed this. I feel like we both have a lot of value to offer,
Yeah.
especially with us being experienced in this business, on how to help people that's newly into this business and how to help people potentially get out. So
Get
I
out.
think we might need to create a segment where we come in every week or something and discuss different topics about Uber. I'm open to it. I can
Yeah.
spare an hour or 2 hours to talk about it because I'm
I
all for
love it.
helping people. Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I want to hear more about Houston. That's one city I've never been to, man. I got to
You
get
never
down
been to
there.
Houston?
I've seen lots of videos that mock Houston. One more lane of traffic, right? You guys got like some 8 lane highways, 10 lane
Man,
highways.
yeah. So yeah, 6 to 8, but people here drive crazy, man. So,
Oh,
and I'm pretty sure that's in every state, but
if you saw where I drove, I drove out in the middle of farm country, man. There's cows. You got to watch out for deer, cows. Yeah, it's nothing out here, man. I live in the middle of nowhere.
at
Hey,
least, hey, at least you ain't got to worry about traffic though.
hey, but if you fly up here, I'll pick you up in my Uber Black experience, and I'll go down there in Houston, expect some 5-star luxury ride, man.
Let me know.
All right, man. Well, hey, to the people on the channel, hey, the subscribers, I want you to know that I really, truly appreciate you liking and subscribing to the channel. I think what you do matters, and I hope that you're safe, healthy, and happy. I hope that you're making lots of money if you can make it. But you know what? I want you to know that I'm cheering for you. Hey, be well. Bye.
Later.